Singapore's public transportation is known for being one of the world's best, whisking people across the island quickly and efficiently. What really sets us apart from many other cities is the sheer reach that our public transport system has, with even desolate areas such as Kranji farmlands and Lim Chu Kang connected by a bus service. However, there is a catch. With very limited exception, our transit system shuts off around midnight. Even the services that do not are either cross-border services or obscenely long trunk services, and they shut off soon after as well. Great transit cities around the world often have some level of public transport running throughout the night. London runs night tube services, and the New York City subway famously runs 24 hours a day. Even cities that are much smaller than Singapore, such as Milan, have a rather extensive network of night buses. Night transit service is necessary for any big city, with Singapore being no exception. A lot of workers work late shifts, and our nightlife scene, despite not being as famous as other cities, is still rather vibrant. Our clubs being packed on Friday and Saturday nights as people relieve the stress from the work week. It's not like Singapore has never had a night transit network. We used to have a pretty extensive one before the pandemic hit in the form of night buses. These night buses were introduced at the turn of the millennium by the then Trans Island Bus Services, which is today SMRT, under the Night Rider branding. SBS then followed suit with its own night services, branded as Night Owl. TIBS was particularly aggressive with introducing night riders, with a gargantuan 21 services operated at its peak. Predictably, most of them did not survive longer than the lifespan of a dragonfly. After some consolidation and service changes, the pre-COVID night bus network took its shape in 2014. SMRT operated night riders 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8, while SBS operated night owls 1N through 6N. These services connected the city and Sentosa to the heartlands after the last trains and buses had departed. They charged significantly higher fares of $4.50, though a lot cheaper than taking a taxi. Passenger loading was moderate, with the average night bus carrying anywhere between 4 and 15 passengers. Not terrible considering the fact that these services were largely driven by part-timers and charged a small fortune. These buses departed from their city origins at 45-minute frequencies until 2 AM, meandering through the city before sprinting to the heartlands using trunk roads and expressways. Once they reached the heartlands, they continued their colossal meandering with one night service often covering the entire town. All this came crashing down when COVID hit. In the face of stringent lockdowns and the complete collapse of nightlife, the LTA temporarily suspended night bus operations from the 8th of April 2020, along with express and leisure services as part of the circuit breaker measures. However, unlike their express cousins, night buses never again saw the light of day. On the 30th of June 2022, the LTA announced that all night buses would be withdrawn with no replacement. Singapore was catapulted back 2 decades. Services would once again end at midnight as they had before the turn of the millennium. This decision left many shocked and perplexed. Nightlife was slowly returning after its hiatus from COVID, and the government was trying its hardest to get people to spend at nightlife establishments to keep them afloat. Why then did they axe the one thing that democratized access to nightlife? It seems like night buses did not have enough demand to justify keeping. So then, why was demand so low? There are a couple explanations that I can think of. First of all, the routes of night buses were simply too long and indirect. Remember what I said about night buses meandering too much? These buses departed from their city origins at 45-minute frequencies until 2 AM, meandering through the city before sprinting to the heartlands using trunk roads and expressways. Once they reached the heartlands, they continued their colossal meandering with one night service often covering the entire town. A single night service often had to serve up to 4 different towns, and the sparse distribution of night services meant that each night service had to cover a large part of the town before proceeding to the next one. This resulted in night services having very long run times, taking even longer than daytime services despite the roads being completely deserted. The fact that night services covered basically the entire central area before heading to the heartlands didn't help the runtime woes. After long nights, drinking, fornicating, and partying, people would want to get home as quickly as possible to rest and recuperate for the following day. The night buses really did not help with that, taking eons to reach their destination. Coupled with the next problem that the old night buses faced, made them rather unattractive to consumers who instead were willing to bite the bullet and pay for private hire vehicles, whose fares hadn't skyrocketed to the extortionate level of today just yet. Secondly, the night buses were simply too infrequent. Night services ran at eye-watering 45-minute frequencies before COVID hit. For comparison, even services LTA desperately wants gone, like 167 and 852, have better frequency. I'm pretty sure nightlife patrons would not appreciate having to wait 45 minutes for a bus in the dead of night, when Grab takes you home in half the time it takes for the night bus to arrive. Combining this with the long runtime, the mentally draining affair that is taking a night bus meant that it is not surprising the night buses had rather weak ridership, and that the famously austere Land Transport Authority felt that they weren't worth keeping. Now, we've established that night buses as they were in the past didn't work out. So then, how do we bring them back? Well, enter my proposal. So, Singapore has a rather extensive network of city direct services and express services that operate during the peak hours. These services serve central areas such as Shenton Way and Dhoby Ghaut before rocketing out to the heartlands using expressways. These are fast and direct, exactly what night buses are not. Why don't we repurpose them? Services that start from Anson Road during the evening peaks can be amended to serve Chinatown and Clarke Quay, emulating the diversion routes that they take during the F1 period while entering their express sectors a bit later after serving Orchard. Services that start from Central Boulevard and Suntec City can be extended to start from Orchard, with some being routed through Clarke Quay and some to Suntec and MBS, before converging again at Shenton Way for possible transfers and then embarking on the express sectors to their respective towns. These express buses, despite having a similarly meandering city sector to their night bus ancestors, have non-stop sectors to their respective towns. Moreover, they will only serve one town each, with two services sometimes teaming up to cover one town. This especially benefits commuters who previously lived at the end of the old night bus routes. They no longer have to put up with the excruciatingly long zigzagging through a neighbouring town before reaching their destination. Since runtimes are shortened, these buses could potentially be cycled. The first bus that departs at 11:30, for instance, can return for another trip at 1:30, something which the old night buses could only dream of doing. To complement this network of express buses, select trunk services can also operate past midnight. These trunk services can plug the gaps left by the night express buses, especially towns which are closer to the city and do not have the density to warrant an express bus by themselves. Fast trunk services such as 36 and 190, as well as long local stop trunks which serve wide areas closer to the city, such as 147 and 67, can have their hours extended. 36 and especially airport services should have extended hours, perhaps even 24-hour service if it is operationally feasible. The airport never closes. Passengers, airport workers, and crew still stream in even at the oddest hours. Travelers, especially more budget-conscious ones, will appreciate the night buses as an alternative to the exorbitant fares that private hire vehicles charge. As a whole, frequencies on night buses, both trunk and express, will be significantly improved from 45 minutes to a much more tolerable 15 minutes. Now, while it may seem that this will require a significant step up in resources, I think it is still manageable. In addition to the night buses now being able to cycle, night services in the past were largely driven by part-time bus captains and students, of which there is a large pool to recruit from who may be willing to drive night buses for some extra cash. In sum, I think this rework of the night bus network will be significantly better than the one that existed before the pandemic hit. Routes will now be faster, more direct, and more frequent, increasing passenger loadings and providing the revenue needed for these services to run. It's a classic case of induced demand really. Make the service better and more people will take it. Let's hope that the LTA brings back night buses and they bring them back better. Thanks guys so much for watching this video and I hope you all liked it. I have many more videos planned, so stay tuned for them. If you want to get in touch, you can join the STC Discord server or follow my Instagram page. Both links will be in the description. Till then, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
You ready to kick some ass?